never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Brian Koberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. I'm Daniel, and today we're getting back into the Jack and Lilly Sullivan disappearance. There's a lot of breaking news that has been dropped in the last 24 hours, mainly this morning and yesterday. The RCMP has released some new information and some stuff and documents that surprised me to a certain extent. You know, for those that have been following me a while, we made up a fake persona called Psychic Daniel. Psychic Daniel was a guy that I created because what I was doing was I was calling things that were happening in the Brian Koberger case. And it was not because I was psychic. I don't believe in that. But what it was because I kind of understood the evidence. I understood what law enforcement were doing and what it meant if they did this or that. And also what it meant, you know, what law enforcement would try to say was certain pieces of evidence that they had. And like, for instance, I was able to predict that Brian Koberger was a fan of American Psycho and that he was much of his inspiration, like from his Tapatalk and some of the other things that he was doing was from that movie. Ted Bundy was another one that I had said, and I even called out that he was utilizing a radio, a dispatch radio, whether it was a radio and I even named it by name, the app Broadcastify. And I said that he was most likely listening to the radio dispatch between law enforcement in that case. And sure behold, we find out that to be the case. And so obviously the Probergers were saying that I was stupid or I couldn't get things right. And so I guess when things started to go in the direction that I thought, I guess since I didn't know what I was talking about, it must be because I was psychic. That's why I was getting everything right. Well, in this case here, it seems like a lot of the things that I've said are starting to come around. And there was a suspicious neighbor that I had thought of, you know, just kind of investigating some people from the area. I've talked to a lot of people in the area and some people that are very, very close to this case, maybe even investigating this case. And in my conversations with individuals from the area, a name continually popped up, Bradley Wong. Now, I was not willing to go out there and say anything about Bradley Wong because I wasn't, sure, and I'm still not sure. And I'm not saying that this guy had anything to do with anything. But this was the guy that I was a little bit suspicious about based off of his history. And I have talked a little bit about what makes me suspicious of this man, but I have not really gone into too much detail. Well, I was trying to figure out a way, if possible, that if I did need to bring him up, how I could do that. I never thought in my wildest dreams that he would do it for us, and he would come out or at least his information would come out to the public as a person who was speaking to law enforcement about certain things. Now, I'm not surprised by the things that he said. I've heard of these things based on my conversations with people that are close to this case. And so without further ado, let's look into it. Let's look into who Bradley Wong is, who Justin Smith is, and what it is and how they play a role in this case. So this is from February of 2020. Here's how Pictou County RCMP stopped a surge in property thefts. And you'll see that RCMP in Pictou County recovered so much stolen property, they had to rent out a storage container to keep it all secured. This guy was going through a lot of people's properties. And as you can see, right here in the left corner, you got guns, you got a lot of different types of equipment. But a lot of this stuff is stuff that you would find either in storages. You have speakers and things of that nature. Some looks like hunting equipment in the back, a lot of gasoline, a lot of generators, stuff like that. It's truly a team effort. We couldn't be happier with the final results. And it goes on to say 31-year-old Bradley Mitchell Wong of Lansdowne and 36-year-old Thomas James Fulton of Rockland in relation to these incidents. And a large amount of stolen items were recovered, including trailers, vehicles, and tools. And so let me pull up a picture of what Mr. Wong looks like so we can get an idea. Let's put a and the only reason I'm doing this now is his name is obviously out in the media. And in the end of the day, let's just say that Daniel gets arrested. This guy could be a witness. And everything that we're going to be pointing out to today is going to be brought up. Now, this is Mr. Wong. He's got the 289, I think 0 something tattooed on his neck, a couple of tattoos on his chest. This picture's with his wife. I'm not going to show her. He's got some interesting tattoos on his arms. This is Bradley Wong. Just so everybody gets an idea of what Bradley looks like. Now, this article here is interesting, but this one's better. It goes into a little bit more detail. On February 12th, Pictou District's RCMP, with the assistance of Integrated Street Crime Enforcement Unit, arrested 2 men following a break and enter at a business on West River Station Road in Salt Springs. Police stopped the vehicle that was leaving the scene of a break and enter and arrested 2 men inside. 31-year-old Bradley Mitchell Wong of Lansdowne and 36-year-old Thomas James Fulton of Rockland have been charged with break and enter, 2 counts of possession of property obtained by crime, and 2 counts of theft under $5,000. Wong is also charged with possession of a controlled substance. The vehicles driven by the suspects was a light blue Subaru Outback. Now, a lot of people have been asking and complaining or saying something about an Outback and a blue Outback that may have been seen in the area, this, that, and the third. Well, wouldn't you know it, Mr. Wong drives a light blue Subaru Outback, and he was charged with possession of a controlled substance. Now, a lot of people look at Daniel and say, hey, we believe that he was under the influence of drugs. We believe this and that. Drugs must have been involved in some form or fashion. There hasn't been a lot of evidence outside of him saying that in the past that he did have some sort of drug issue. There has been nothing that has come forward. In fact, there was some pictures of what looked like a lighter that was broken that was tried to come off by some creators. I'm not going to mention any names or anything or point pictures. Some people brought it up. I'm not saying those that brought it up ever said that. So I'm not pointing any fingers towards, like, for instance, Sonny, who brought up the picture. It wasn't her. It was other creators that I saw that brought up that same picture when looking at the battery and trying to say that it was some sort of baggie. Sonny never said that. And so, but some people were trying to say that it was a burner phone mixed with some drugs, crumbled up together and put on a water heater, and that was just completely crap. Now, we do have something here that says that somebody that was living pretty close who has a history of, maybe some stolen property here. And it don't sound like it's a one-time thing. It sounds like it's a very much a lot of property. From what I understand, these 2 men were basically kicked out of the town that they were in and began staying there on Lansdowne Road. but possession of a controlled substance, and he's also charged with 2 counts of theft under 5,000, and they have multiple pieces of evidence, as we can see here. They had to rent out a storage to get everything in that they had that was stolen. So now that we know that, what is the information that has recently come out? What are we looking at? All right, so here's the interesting thing. So this is on, let's pull this up. So this is on May 9th. So this is May 9th. This is a week after. So this is important, right? When did this conversation come up? When did the information come up? So May 9th, a week later, Bradley Wong has a conversation. Now, he does not want to do anything in writing. Doesn't want, this guy's been to prison and stuff like that, which this might be a little bit interesting when it comes to find out, like when his friends find out that he's talked to law enforcement. I'm not saying that in a bad way, just that, I hope he's okay, because, if he's in a certain group of people that I reckon he's in, then, a lot of those people don't like people talking to cops. Just kind of throwing that out, which you have to take that into consideration with why he's saying these things, right? It could be one of two things. One, he's being 100% honest. There's that possibility that he's being 100% honest. He saw something and he reported it to police a week later, albeit, but he reported it to police, and it was something so serious enough that whatever it is that he saw or thinks he saw, that it was that he rather risk his possible reputation, possible any retaliation that he may get from his friends and people in his circle who may not really side with talking to law enforcement. I think this is huge. I think it's huge. It's either that, or he was willing to talk to law enforcement because he's really desperate to get them to look out of his direction. You know what I'm saying? So it's not uncommon, and I'm not saying that he's doing this, but it's not uncommon for somebody who's been involved in a crime to involve themselves in the crime. Now, one of the things that I had heard about this man is that he wasn't too keen on law enforcement being near his property, much less on his property. It sounds like he wasn't being completely cooperational. He didn't want to sign anything. He didn't want to be recorded. He didn't want to give a statement. So he was just talking to them. And I wonder what the motive may have been, because this is the other aspect of it. It's either one, he truly did see something that was nefarious, a vehicle driving around, which we're going to look at a map and see if this is possible. Or two, he was really desperate for somebody to look in a different direction than his. Now, maybe there's a third option that I'm not thinking about. Maybe he was drunk and he thought he saw something, right? And he came up. But let's listen to what his story is. He said in the early morning hours of May 2nd, he heard a loud vehicle coming and going in the area of 1407 Gairloch Road. He said his residence is in an elevated position from Daniel's residence, and he could see the vehicle over the treetops. He said the vehicle left 3 or 4 times after midnight into the early morning hours. He said the vehicle would drive off in the distance. He could hear it stop and then return. He said he remained in earshot the entire time. Now, I'm wondering if he was able to hear this from inside or outside. There's been a lot of speculation that has gone around, or a lot of people that have said that he was supposedly working on his vehicle. Now, this was in May 2nd. And so Nova Scotia is a little bit different than a lot of parts of the United States when it comes to early May. It's still pretty dang cold out there during the early morning hours, right? And so just kind of curious about his situation outside, and if he was outside or if he was inside, he could hear all of this from inside. And for a night that was absolutely normal, what made all this stand out in his head? You know what I mean? That a car drove down back and forth, was loud, those type of situations, right? And so let's continue. It says here, so that's about Brad Wong. Let's scroll down a little bit to Justin Smith. So this is on May 17th. So this is yet again this is actually a little bit over a week, about 8 days later. Justin Smith, who lives in the area where Jack and Lily went missing, they speak with Justin. Justin says he's on good terms with the McKenzie family and has helped Janie out in the past. Goes on to say that on Thursday night, so this is from May 2nd to May 17th, this is over 2 weeks later, this guy's recalling that on Thursday night going into Friday morning, he was up until about 1 a.m. on Facebook. Around 1:30, he heard a car on Highway 289 turn around. 289, I believe that's what he has tattooed on his neck, by the way. Just throwing that out there. All right. On Highway 289 and turn around by the railroad tracks near the area of Gairloch Road and Lansdowne Station Road. It made noise, then went quiet. The vehicle was quiet for about 2 minutes and then drove towards Laird Road. He later spoke with Brad Wong. All right. So obviously his conversation with Brad Wong happened between the time that I would assume between the time that Brad spoke with law enforcement and obviously before Justin spoke. So within the last couple of days, Brad Wong has gone and spoken with Justin Smith. So they also know each other. That's important, that the only two people who have reported hearing a loud noise and a loud vehicle in the area, and I've spoken to several people from the area, the only two people that have heard it are these two friends. Just keep that in mind too. All right. So he goes on to say he later spoke with Brad Wong, who informed him Daniel's vehicle came to and went 5 or 6 times that night. So now Brad Wong has changed the story a little bit. He went and told law enforcement that he heard a vehicle from the area. And now he's telling his friend Justin that it was actually Daniel's vehicle that he had seen and heard 5 or 6 times. Wong said the car Smith heard was Daniel. So what he is saying, that's important there. What Wong is telling Smith is the vehicle that you heard was Daniel's vehicle. That's the only, I mean, how does he even know that? If all he heard was a vehicle going back and forth for one. To me, this screams out somebody trying to, like, this screams out that he's trying to find he's trying to manipulate this man into thinking he heard something. What he heard was Daniel, and so that it can corroborate his story. This is what this screams out to me. That this guy is desperate and he's going over to his buddy's house and saying, hey, you heard a car that night. That car you heard was Daniel's. Now, unfortunately for Brad Wong, Justin Smith didn't keep that information about Brad Wong telling him that to himself. So later spoke with Brad Wong, who informed him Daniel's vehicle came 5 or 6 times that night. Different than what he said to law enforcement. So a lot of you guys want to talk about consistencies and words and little things matter. This is not a little one, for one. This is pretty big. And two, you have to, what this means is either Brad Wong was trying to get Justin to cooperate with him, or they were trying to get their story straight. Either way, it don't sound good to me. Smith helped with the search on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but not find anything. Now, I don't know about Smith's background, but from what I hear, it's not the greatest either. And we got to take into some consideration about what he heard and how he heard it and where it is that these guys were. So let's pull it up on the map real quick. Let's go to the map. So I have all the locations where Justin was living at the time. I have the location where Wong lived. And I also have the location of where Daniel lives. So we are to believe that from Daniel's house that Wong can see over the tree line at Daniel's house and that he's able to see these lights going back and forth. That's what he said. Let's find out. There's Daniel's trailer. You think he's seeing some trees, seeing some, you think he's seeing lights over these trees? Huh? Now, the other thing, too, so my other question was maybe these guys are just trying to get the reward, right? Maybe they just want the reward. It's $150,000. Maybe these guys figured Daniel actually did this. You know, we think he did it. We'll just go out there and say we heard some shady stuff. So that way they go and arrest him and we make $150,000. Only problem is these conversations happened in early May, and it wasn't until June when the reward came in. So that's not your motive there. That's not your motive. That's not your motive. Now, where was Justin at that he could have heard all these things about a vehicle? So he heard that a vehicle drive around. Let's pull it back up so we can reread it again. So he heard a vehicle go to the railroad tracks near Gairloch Road and Lansdowne Station. It made a noise. They went quiet. What are you trying to say? That the door opened and somebody planted the blanket out there? For one, if you're trying to implicate that this is where the blanket came from and it wasn't on camera at 9 a.m. or at 6 a.m. when the bus drove by, why are they lying? Now, again, they may not be lying. They could just be inaccurate. And there's a difference between being inaccurate and lying. So I'll correct myself. But they sure are trying to make it seem like something was happening by where the blanket was found, and they're trying to implicate Daniel as being that person. That's kind of what I read here. The vehicle was quiet for about 2 minutes and then drove towards Laird Road. They then later spoke with Wong. So let's see where he was at. So here's where Wong lives. Now, Justin lived, this is where one of his houses was. I believe this is the one with his girlfriend. This is the one where he stayed when he was with his mom. And I recently found out, so these two areas, for one, are hella far away from Daniel's house. So I was like, I highly doubt. But what I recently found out is that he was actually staying here that night of the disappearance, which is crazy because if Wong happened to be visiting Justin that night, and apparently they are friends, guess which house he has to pass in front of to get back home? Just kind of throwing that out there. But this is apparently where Justin was at. And from way over here, he was able to determine that a vehicle drove around here all the way to the railroad tracks and then did something over here quietly. That's a bit of a stretch to me, guys. I'm not going to lie. That's a bit of a stretch that they could hear from this far away. So you have two guys who, and let me show you who he is. So I know you guys are going to be wondering, well, what does he look like? To be honest with you, I'll be 110% honest. When I saw his picture, I was like, man, this dude kind of looked like Daniel's oldest brother or like his, like his dad or something. I was kind of not weirded out. I was like, man, there's a resemblance there between Daniel and this guy. But this is your Justin Smith. This is the other guy that has come across and spoken with law enforcement. So now that we have two different persons, two people that hang out, and as of recently, these two guys were in a bar about night. I'm not sure if it was last night or the night before. Justin and Brad were hanging around together, even at the bar. I'm just, kind of curious as to if their relationship has always been so close, if they've always been so tight, or if this is something recent and there's a reason for the relationship to have gotten so tight and so close together. Just my pickups here. Let's see. And you're right, Lurker. That is where Lorda is. It's no longer Lorda. It's no longer for a disability place. And I would love to tell you where I got this information from, but I can't. And let's just say if he wasn't there, then the only other place he could have been was over here, where he stays with his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, or over here where he stays with his mom. And I'm not going to point exactly which house either one of them are. Same thing I did with Wong. I put the marker outside of these houses. I'm not going to show you which one is his. It's one of those. But yeah, if he was out here, you think he can hear anything? If he was out here, do you think he can hear anything over there by the railroad or way up here? No way in hell he'd be able to hear anything. Now, why he was staying here, I haven't quite figured that out. I don't know. But from what I understand is this is where he was that night that the kids disappeared. Let's see. Thank you. Dan, I'm so sad that a lot of YouTubers think they are investigators. A lot of them, well, I'm not going to talk negatively about other YouTubers. but I've seen this not so much with other YouTubers, but definitely with those in the comment section. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're regurgitating things that they have heard other YouTubers say, right? And so 100%, RCMP know a lot more than we do. Now, remember, when all this conversation happened was in early May. In July 16th, so over a month later, is when our RCMP came out and said that they don't believe that there was a criminal offense or criminal anything. So they investigated what these two guys said about Daniel. RCMP looked into it. So food for thought. You know, you got to put this all in order. So if RCMP investigated these guys' claims, this stuff was not, it was redacted. And remember what I told you guys. I told you guys, this is Psychic Daniel, here he comes again. I told you guys that the stuff that was redacted, in my opinion, was unfounded information. There was opinion, and it was things based off of those things. And I told you guys that a lot of it was what Malaya or what Daniel thought of Malaya. There's some stuff in there about what Durwood may have said, but they have that blacked out, or they don't go into any details of that either. And so the stuff that was blacked out was personal information and stuff that was unfounded or unproven. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just that they weren't able to prove one way or another if that information was real. And if they were able to prove that the information was either didn't result to anything or was just a dead end, they probably still would have put that information. They would have probably still kept that information redacted. Now, because of the pressure of the media and everybody else, they unredacted this, and now there's the speculation storm, if you want to call it, the speculation storm. I was thinking something else that starts with an SH, and has gone through without any thought as to who, what, when, where, and why. Like, who's reporting this? What's in their background? Why are they reporting it? Where do they live? And how is it related to the situation, to the stuff that they're saying? And why are they saying these things? And when you start asking all these questions and you start putting it all together, it starts to kind of paint a little bit of a different picture, especially once we know what the answer was. The answer was that RCMP investigated this. We know that because it's in the RCMP documents. So RCMP would not have put it in the documents if they didn't investigate the things that they were saying. And we know that after these things were said, based on the evidence that they had, they weren't able to find anything of a criminal offense. And so even if it was Daniel that was out there driving around doing this, that, and a third, Janie and Malaya both heard the kids that morning. And so if something would have happened to the kids that night, either both, it would have been impossible for them to have heard the kids, or they would have also have had to have been involved. And one of the interesting things that has been brought up in this court document is the polygraph test. They go into a little bit more of a detail of what not necessarily was said, but what was in it. Let's see. Let me find it real quick so I can show you guys. All right. Polygraph examination results. So right here it says, so before it only went up to Daniel's polygraph examination procedure indicated he was truthful, and then the rest was blocked off when he answered no to the following questions. Now, he told us what the questions were, that all the questions were related to the death and the murder of the kids. Now, I said that the lie detector test is probably going to be different for Malaya, because Malaya's potential involvement, if she was trying to run away from Daniel and there was some sort of elaborate plan into making the kids disappear, so that way, whatever the case may be, I don't buy it, so that's why I don't put too much into it. But let's just say that was the case, that she had some inkling on causing the children's disappearance. They cover that here. It says here, let me find it. See, because it kind of goes into, like, I think even a different order. See, it says here that she was willing to and agreed to a polygraph examination into the investigation in effort to eliminate her as a suspect, and causing her children's disappearance and possible murder. She was found to be truthful when answering the following questions. And so, as you can see, it's not answering no. It's answering the following questions. So some of these questions that they had for her weren't necessarily all questions that favored her if the answer was no, right? So that means that some of the questions that favored her because she was truthful and they don't believe that anything had occurred, that automatically should tell you that the questions were different. And so these questions here are referencing the possible disappearance, possible murder. So when you put those into consideration, it kind of does cover all aspects. Now, the reason why they haven't asked anybody else to come take a lie detector test, against what maybe perhaps Daniel wants, is because in order for them to be involved, whether it be Malaya's mom, her stepdad, Hayden, Haley, any of these people, Malaya would have had to have been involved first. And so if you can't prove her involvement, and in fact, there's possible exculpatory evidence that shows that she wasn't involved or there was kids, like all these other stories that they're not real, how could you ever ask or tell anybody else outside of Malaya to take polygraph tests? It doesn't make any sense, right? You can only go as far as you can go. And if the line stops at Malaya, unless somebody comes out forward and says something differently, you gotta believe your evidence. And it's not just the polygraph test, it's the evidence that's also with it. So you have your evidence and you have your polygraph and you have your statements, all that combined together. If you can't make a case that she was, involved in some sort of criminal offense, how are you going to make a case that her cousin or her mom or her dad or anybody else did? Same thing can go for Daniel, and across the board. So to me, just kind of seeing all these things as they played out, just kind of make it a little bit more stronger on the RCMP side of things. And that's what I follow, is the RCMP side. I'm not going against what they're saying. I think they know more evidence than any of us do, as you were saying, Luis. And I think that, I think that if they found something, who's Daniel? It'd be one thing if like Daniel's dad was like, I don't know, buddy with the chief of police, or if, Daniel's uncle was like, I don't know, the prime minister or something. I don't even know I don't know what everything's called out there as far as the government goes, or local government, sheriff. I don't know if Daniel had family in a situation like that and they didn't want to prosecute him, or they didn't want, throw him under the bus. But Daniel's not anybody special out there. He's nobody out there. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean that in a way like who is he that law enforcement would not want to prosecute for anything, whether it was the death or the disappearance of the kids, or abuse, or possession of drugs, or taking drugs, or doing any of those things. Why do they care who Daniel is? And like I said, I don't mean any disrespect by it. It's the same thing would go for like, a lot of people. Most people who are just normal individuals who don't know anybody of any high importance, as far as like in the judicial system, their local government, or in their government in a whole, why would anybody want to defend you in that manner? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, again, if you had like, I don't know, Alex Murdaugh or something with his family, where the dad's a lawyer and all these, ties and all these other things, probably got a point. Or like in the Timothy D's case, where it's not necessarily a situation where law enforcement had something to do with his death, but in my opinion, more of a situation where it appears that law enforcement or somebody somewhere in that department is doing some things that aren't very with a lack of integrity. And in my opinion, they're preventing an investigation in that area because of something that it may uncover. Now, is that possible out here? Are law enforcement, is there somebody up high in law enforcement that's afraid of that there might be an investigation within the area and uncover something that they don't want if they investigate this to its fullest? No, I don't think so, because they're continuing to investigate it to its fullest. They haven't sat down on their hands. They haven't given up. They haven't put it on the shelf. They're continually doing things, including bringing in cadaver dogs and things like that. So And also it appears that it's a multi-agency type of thing going on here, where you have local law enforcement, you have RCMP bringing in handlers and dog handlers from across different provinces, and across the country to that area so that they can continue their search. It seems very less likely that this is because they're trying to cover up some sort of, I don't know, operation that they may have there. What this sounds like to me is it's always been that the kids have wandered off, and there's a possibility that the wrong person at the wrong time was out there and may have picked them up. Now, for me to have gone down that road, I would have, like I've said this multiple times, for law enforcement not to have caught this person yet, that says that they were probably from the area. And why do I say that? Is because they would have done a geofence on the phones for the area. Now, if there was a phone that was from outside of the area, in that area, that might be something. And I know some people might say, well, what if they turned their phone off for this, that, or the third? If some kids wandered off, that's not something you're planning for. That's a crime of opportunity, so you're not planning. It's not premeditated to the point, like, for instance, Brian Koberger, that had all these plans and routes that he was going to take after he committed the crime and stuff like that. And the ability to turn off his phone, over an hour before he committed the crime. That's a different scenario. That's a completely different animal. In this scenario here, if some kids wandered off and they got picked up by the wrong person, that's a crime of opportunity, and less likely that the person turned off his phone or those type of things. And so it would have to be somebody in the area, somebody that their location would be indistinguishable from whether or not they were at their house or at Daniel's house. And unfortunately for both Justin Smith and Bradley Wong, given the area that they live in, it's a good possibility, because again, the difference between Daniel's phone and Bradley's and Justin's phone is Daniel turned over his phone and allowed a forensic download. They were able to look at the GPS on his phone. When it comes to the other people that are in the area at the time, all you have to look at are advanced call timing records, call advance records. And so those aren't as accurate as others. And given the terrain and given the low service and the ruralness of the area, anybody within like a couple of miles probably would be hard to tell whether they were at Daniel's house or their own house, right? Now, what makes me interested in Wong is that he's a super thief. He's a burglar. He goes in, he's taken a lot of things from a lot of different places, and there's a lot of evidence for that. He also was arrested with possession of controlled substance. Typically when you have controlled substance and somebody stealing off of somebody's property, they go hand in hand. It's somebody trying to pay for their habit and to support themselves. And when you have somebody trying to support a habit, and if that is the habit, that the reason why they're committing these thefts, I don't put it past somebody who's having a habit to go through the trash. And so, that's where this pink blanket may come apart. Is it possible that, he went through that, felt some fabric, tore it open to see what it was, took out a piece of the blanket, saw the kids outside, told them, hey, you should be in school. I'll take you to school. Maybe he was high on something. And this is all my speculation, my opinion, nothing else, nothing in facts. Tells the kids he's going to give him a ride home, and off he goes. A ride to school, and off he goes. They would have known him. Apparently Wong's kids drive are on the same bus as Lilly and Jack's. And so, and Smith, as weird as this is, so Smith says he knows Janie and stuff, never met Millie or Daniel, but this is the guy who also said he didn't know that there were kids at that house. So these are the two witnesses who have spoken, I guess, the most when it comes to talking about Daniel and his possible involvement. Again, to me, I thought, maybe they saw something, or if they didn't, then there's got to be a different, more nefarious motive for this. And I don't know which one it is, but I would say that law enforcement has looked into it, and it appears that they have cleared Daniel and Janie of anything. So I wonder why they came out with this so strong against Daniel at that time. It makes sense after the reward, if they were trying to just cash in on the reward. I can see a couple of dudes saying, F it. You know, this guy did it. Let's just go say he did it. And maybe we'll get a piece of that $150,000. They did this before. Zoe 88 comes in with the newest membership. Thank you, Zoe. Chris Dawson coming in with a membership for a month. Thank you. Missy with $10 says, thanks, Dan, for covering this case with facts and truth. Let's bring Jack and Lily home. Thank you, Missy. Mark comes in with his membership for 2 months. And Bubbles and Dolls comes in with $5 super sticker. Thank you guys. You guys rock. I appreciate you. All right. And so at this point, I'm going to be asking your questions and stuff like that. And you guys send them away. Put a couple of stars so I know you're talking to me and not to each other. And we'll answer your questions because, you know, if they because maybe we'll come up with something kind of maybe nobody thought of. Mariska asks, do you think they're looking into Wong? I would hope so. I would. I mean, look at his history. Look at his past. He's in that area. I don't put it past somebody who's if they're trying to feed a habit by stealing things, right? That means they're on drugs. And when you're on drugs, you don't do things you normally would do. You get what I'm saying? And like I mentioned at the top of the show, this guy comes from a criminal background. He's been to jail and things of that nature. For him to cooperate with law enforcement about any information is pretty drastic, in my opinion. It means one or two things: either he really did see something, or he's really trying to avoid them looking in his direction. And the reason why I believe that, and that's just my opinion, is because if he even if he did hear something or whatnot and he wasn't sure, you know, a guy that has a criminal record and potentially still, I don't know if he's still involved in criminal stuff. From what I understand and heard, there's a lot of people that are scared of him. For him to come out and have a conversation with law enforcement about something, you know, I would, and this is just my opinion and speculation. I could be very well wrong, but I would think that, you know, somebody in that situation, and in my experience and talking to people in that situation, they usually don't talk to cops. They usually don't say anything, you know, especially if they didn't do anything, like get out of here. I ain't talking to you, this, that, and the third. You know what I'm saying? They don't want anybody to know that they've talked to cops, or they don't want anybody to get the opinion or the thought that they may have spoken to law enforcement. And so for somebody to come forward from that world, it must have been for a very big reason. And like I said, him coming forward and talking to Justin happened before law enforcement had concluded, maybe not concluded is the right word, but have closed the chapter on the part of the book that had them focused in on the parents as possible murderers. Right. Now, again, some people want to argue neglect and things of that nature. I'm not going to be able to argue with that. You know, I believe that the kids wandered off. You know, the fence wasn't completely built at the time. It was being built in stages, and it wasn't completely built. So there was no obstacle for them to walk off. There's a footprint in the driveway heading towards the street that belonged to Jack. And they found a blanket, you know, down the road. Now, I too struggle with the blanket. It's up in the air, and it looks like somebody planted it. Now, if it was Wong, this is just another speculation on my part, but if it was Wong, why would he put it out there? You know, he would have had to have gotten it when he took the kids if it was him, right? And then the footprint out in the middle of the pipeline is a little bit weird then too, right? Because if they wandered off and they got that far, it's unlikely that somebody else picked them up or anything like that. And I've also said it's very unlikely that that it's anybody else's kids, but it could be. You know, there was other kids that were in the area. It talks about it here. The documents state that there was other kids, so they're not sure, but they did write in there, but it was kind of out of the way. So I 100% believe that there's still a high possibility that could have happened. But if Wong went out there and they were setting up their command center pretty close to where he was at, you know, towards where his house was, And let's bring that back up. And again, nobody's been charged. So I'm not accusing him of doing anything. I'm just bringing out what probably a defense attorney would come if Daniel Martel was arrested. His attorney would be attacking Bradley Wong a lot harder than I am. I guarantee you that. I'm still giving this guy the benefit of the doubt. In fact, I never named him until these documents did. And this is from the North Shore. And I mean, it says right here, Brad Wong told police on May 9th. So I didn't want to name him. That wasn't what I wanted to do because I had no evidence or anything like that. They did. So just kind of emphasizing this. But if they set up, from what I understand, the command center was set up somewhere around right here, somewhere in this area. I don't know if it was right here or right here, but it was fairly close to where Bradley lives, from what I understand. And he wasn't too keen on it. So if he were to go and just kind of toss the blanket over here in the opposite direction, he may be thinking that could get this command center moved out of there. So, but I don't know. That's just 100% speculation. I can't say that without a shadow of a doubt. That's just my thinking and kind of putting things together. But again, Bradley Wong says he saw Daniel. Well, he told Justin at least that that the vehicle he heard was Daniel's, and which is interesting because he said he could see it over the hilltop. There's Daniel's house, and he could see the lights over the top of the trees. Daniel flying or what? And so even if you're like up here and you're in an elevated area, it's going to be difficult. But he said he could see him through the top of the trees. I mean, to see him from the top of the trees, you would have to be way up here to have the angle of seeing him at the top of the trees. You would have to be elevated freaking high. And no way you're going to be able to tell if the vehicle pulled in here, pulled in over there. If there was a vehicle that wasn't his. Let's just remember, I strongly suspect that there's a good chance it was his vehicle. Maybe he was doing something that he doesn't want people to look into, i.e. like Ron Logan, right? Ron Logan came out with an alibi, before, this is the Delphi case in Delphi, Indiana. Ron Logan came out with an alibi before Libby and Abby's bodies were found. And it was because he was committing a different crime. Maybe he's worried that they're going to investigate something, find out that it was him driving around and connect some different crime to him. And that's what he's trying to hide. It's 100% plausible. I'm just putting out a bunch of different possibilities out there. And again, one of the possibilities is that he could have been correct. Him and Justin may have seen what they thought they saw or heard. And this is where Justin was at. Now, I have been asking and questioning a few people why he was out here. I don't know the answer to that question yet. I don't know why he was here, but apparently this is where he was the night that the kids went missing. And again, he hangs out with Wong. That's been proven. They talk. They said it in the statement. If Wong was hanging out with him that night or in the morning, or he stayed the night out there and then he came back the next morning for whatever reason, Daniel's house would be the house he would have to pass to get home. Lobster comes in with 139. Thank you, Lobster. Appreciate that. Miss 101 comes in saying, poor babies and parents. I can't imagine missing babies and having a huge crowd blame you. So sad all around. I 100% agree. I mean, it's one thing to be suspicious. I would have been suspicious at first, right? It's kind of like the Emmanuel Haro case. Everybody was super suspicious at first, right? But you have to have evidence that ties into your suspicion. Once exculpatory evidence starts to being brought up, or you have evidence that's contrary to what the suspicion is, you got to follow the evidence. In the Haro case, Those parents cooperated a little bit, and then they lawyered up and a bunch of other things. But within the little bit amount of cooperation that they had, and again, they don't have a body in that case either. They were able to arrest both mom and dad and get dad to plead guilty. Not even take a plea deal. He just pled guilty. So, you know, with the amount of information, the amount of evidence and cooperation that Daniel, Janie, Malaya have done, you also have to know who you're talking to. We're not talking to like scientists. We're not talking to criminologists, right? We're talking to country folk. We're talking about country folk. And, you know, people that have talk out of emotion. You know, and these aren't folks who you would expect, like Brian Koberger, who's been cool, calm, collected throughout everything, almost bored in his court appearances. And you have these folks who are highly emotional, who have spoken out multiple times. You have this happening, and which reminded me, I have a few things more I wanted to show you guys. But you have all these things, multiple people happening, and they can't find anything. I just don't buy it. Don't buy it for 1 second. And let's see. There's a couple more things I wanted to show you guys. But yeah, if they were involved, given everything that was coming across, you would think that would be where they're at. DT, do you think that Lilly and Jack are alive? I think that if they wandered off into the woods and those footprints belonged to them, and the blanket wasn't left there by a nefarious reason, if they wandered off, I don't think they're alive. If somebody picked them up off the side of the road, they could be. You know, they could be. There's a lot of cases where people have been, and I hate to say it, but you know, people have been held, you know, hostage in places and stuff like that. There's that possibility. Do I think that they were part of some elaborate scheme by one of the parents to have the kids hidden for a short period of time? No, I don't think that at all. Hey, there's somebody here named DT also. And he didn't know there was kids, but he knew Janie. That's true. He a neighbor. Yep, these are the neighbors. This is the neighbor that I talked about that I was kind of suspicious about. Which, again, you know, involving yourself in a crime is not it's a telltale sign of somebody that may have had some sort of involvement in something. And again, I'm not saying that Bradley Wong or Justin Smith are involved in anything. I've talked to Daniel and Janie throughout this entire time, and they've never told me anything about them being involved. I've questioned them a lot. You know, I've asked Daniel about it. I asked him in my interview, is there anybody who's interested in cooperating? He was like, no, we're not going down that road. Now, to me, it's almost like he's worried about, you know, them for whatever reason. I don't think it's more so that he thinks that they're out to, you know, I think he just thinks that they're capable people. Now, that's just my opinion. He hasn't said anything like that. My opinion. I'm not trying to get him in trouble with them or get him in trouble with anybody else. My opinion is that based off the interaction that I've seen him talk about him, you don't seem comfortable around him or about him. And so I've had to do a lot of digging outside of Daniel and Janie to figure out much, if not all, of the information that I found out about Justin and Bradley. I want to say thank you to those, and you know who you are. I want to say thank you for giving me the information and stuff. I found out even more stuff. There was apparently a guy named Justin Smith who was arrested for all sorts of things. And, you know, I don't believe it's the same Justin, so I'm not going to bring up those information or that stuff because the age don't match. You know, apparently Justin's in his 40s, and the crime that would have happened would have put the guy in his mid to early 30s. It's close, but it's not the same. Although Bradley Wong is only 36, so it's not like if, you know, he's hanging out with Smith being in his 40s, him being 36 isn't out of the realm of possibility of that friendship being there. The same goes if Smith was 33 or so, and hanging out with a 36-year-old. That's not too big of an age difference of people that hang out with. But from what I've been told is that Justin is a little bit older, in his 40s, and the guy that had committed this armed robbery, named Justin Smith, in 2012, was 19 at the time. And so I think that would have put him like around 32, 33, somewhere around there, depending on when his birthday is in that year. So not the same guy. Has he ever allowed them to search his property yet? I don't think so. The reason being is he didn't want him near his property. I doubt he wanted him on his property. And from what I heard, it was that didn't allow him. Now, is that because he had the kids? We just talked about the amount of stuff that he has stolen in the past, and he's also been arrested for drug possession. So him denying law enforcement from searching his residence can be something that is a big red flag for the kids missing, but it also can be a situation where he could have some things on his property that he doesn't want law enforcement to see. I don't know the answer to that, so that's why I'm not going in one way or the other as far as how nefarious that is. I will say that it's a red flag, and it's something that we should keep an eye on, but it's not something that I would say today is like a smoking gun or anything like that. Oh man, did I scroll too far? DT, you say you totally believe the kids are in the woods, but now you think they could have been taken by the neighbors. And no. What I said was, I believe they're in the woods. And I believe that there's a possibility that if they wandered off, that somebody could have picked them up in the area. I can't deduce that out, right? Like, for instance, if somebody were to tell me that, oh, the kids got involved in Daniel's drugs and something happened to them and that's why they died. Like, all right, so if Daniel has drugs, he has to either purchase them or make them, one or the other, right? As he's either buying them or making them, or somebody gave them to him. And so who, what, when, where, and why? These are the questions that need to be answered all the time. Where did he get them? Who did he get them from? How did he get them? Where did he get them from? Like, as far as location, when did he get them from? You have his phone, you have his location, you have his financial records, you have his text messages. All those things should make it fairly simple to figure out some rural country boy buying drugs. It's not going to be hard to figure out. It's not going to be hard, right? And so you can deduce those things. You can deduce the fact that, all right, if somebody wanted to say that Daniel did something and he's the only person that did something, and Malaya and Janie are just pawns of his manipulation. Problem with that is that Malaya saw Lilly. It's in the documents that she saw Lilly come in. She also says that Lilly woke up Meadow, and so she had to turn on the TV, and this happened about 8:20 in the morning, about 8 minutes before she makes a phone call to her mom, which was one of the things that I said. So I said, hey, we shouldn't jump to conclusions. When somebody said, hey, she made a phone call at 8:28, I said, there's a couple of things, and then here comes Psychic Daniel again. There's a couple of things that could have happened in that scenario. One, maybe she was calling her mom to pick up the kids, and this was all an elaborate hoax, and yet they couldn't figure it out. I doubt it. Two, it was a butt dial. And, I don't put it past, like, if it was like a random number that she's never called before, and and then you find some weird ties to this person later, that's suspicious. But if there's a butt dial to a parent, that's a common contact, a person that you're commonly messaging and calling, those butt dials happen to common contacts. And then the third thing is it possible that and I said this, that maybe she woke up at that time, tried to call mom didn't answer, and she fell back asleep? Come to find out, about 8:20, the kids did wake up Lilly or Meadow, and she had to get up and turn the TV on. I don't put it past the realm of possibility that as she went to, after that, she tried to call her mom, or she, something like that happened, or she looked at her phone, dozed off while she was looking at her phone and accidentally hit the contact button on her mom and called her. I don't put that either one of those things out of the realm of possibility, given the fact that we now know, based on her statement, that around 8:20 she got up because they woke up Meadow and she turned off the TV. So Janie also heard the kids out that morning. Now, so it's impossible for Daniel to have done something to the kids on Thursday night and Malaya and Janie not know about it. They would have had to have been involved in that scenario. And then you have both of them passing a lie detector test. Now, somebody said, what about Janie? Did she take a lie detector test? She did. And because of a heart issue that she has, they were unable to proceed forward. And basically what she told me was that her heartbeat is there's something wrong with it. It doesn't change when she lies or doesn't, or when she's honest. It's not a fluctuation like I guess most people. It's just kind of steady, the beat. And so that was my understanding of what she said. She didn't go to a doctor. She was kind of nervous, and she's like, I don't want to go check it out and find out something else is wrong with me. But her test was inconclusive because of her heart issue. And so you have Daniel and you have Malaya. So a lot of people would say Daniel, he can pass it because he's a narcissist, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Malaya would also have to be a narcissist. Malaya would also have to have these abilities to pass a lie detector as well. And again, seems like a crime of opportunity, not a crime of premeditation or planning. The lie detector test happened within a couple of weeks of the crime being of the murder of the disappearance happening, right? And so, and I apologize for that. I have like 4 or 5 cases, and all the other ones are murders. It's the only disappearance I have. Everything else is a murder. So it's been about a few weeks since the disappearance of the kids, right? And with a few weeks of the disappearance of the kids, how the hell are they? What are they doing? Did they buy a lie detector test, take it into some random shed somewhere in the middle of nowhere and practice on each other so that they would pass it? Unlikely. Did they search online and Google this and it somehow not be found when law enforcement are going through their phones and going through their history and stuff? And if it was that easy for both of them to not just come out not inconclusive, but to come out truthful, why the hell would law enforcement use it if literally anybody, some guy from rural area, Nova Scotia, and I'm not saying that, if I would have put it in perspective here, like some guy, random, country folk from middle of nowhere, because that's kind of where it's at, in the middle of nowhere, was able to, him and his girlfriend able to pass lie detector tests. Why the hell will law enforcement even use them? How is anybody failing them if it's so easy to pass? You get what I'm saying? And so you also have to look at, when it comes to a lie detector test, a lot of people say it's inadmissible at court. Well, it's inadmissible at court to protect the defendant, not to protect the state. So if Daniel ever did get arrested for this, I guarantee you they're going to bring up the fact that he was truthful on a lie detector test, because that doesn't go against him. That does not go against him. That goes in favor of him. And the admissibility is to protect him if it said that he was lying. But do I believe they're in the woods? I would say I'm still about 75% that they're in the woods. Now, I was closer to like Wong being involved. My opinion was somewhere around the 5 to 10% before. It's a lot higher. It's about 20, 25. And let me rephrase this. I put about 60% that they wandered off into the woods. I do put about a 30% chance that somebody, and that includes Wong, but it also includes somebody else from the neighborhood, may have seen them, picked them up, and that's why they're missing. I can't deduce that out. And I put about a 10% chance that there's something that Daniel may or Malaya and Janie may have done, and we just don't know about it, and they were able to outsmart law enforcement. There is that possibility, right? I can't put a 0% chance on that. I think it's very small, given the amount of evidence and what RCMP has said. But I do think that there is that possibility. Although I just think it's super small, like small at this point. Now, my stance can change. My stance is based on the current circumstances. And I've mentioned this before. The circumstance changes, so does the stance. And what that means is right now, RCMP is saying all these things. But if tomorrow RCMP dropped a bomb that they lied or they found something or something, right? and it says something else, then I'm going to follow what it is that they said. I'm going to look at it objectively and with an open mind. I'm not going to jump to a conclusion. I'm going to see how it fits all the pieces. And then once I see it, how it fits all the pieces, I'll come back with my opinion. But at this point, I kind of side with RCMP, and RCMP are kind of putting it out there pretty hard that they don't feel that they're involved. Let me pull this down. My vision is getting kind of iffy. Let's see. Lori says, Durwood, you are a decent guy, and don't let people's opinions tell you any different. What's going on, Durwood? When this is over, I'm not allowed to be online ever again. Can't say so. You guys are funny. Let's see. Yes, please. If you have good questions, put a couple of asterisks. I can see them. I'm going to start going through these, just looking for those that have the stars. And also, if you have super chats, I will definitely be calling those out. Lobster, thank you. We have $4.99. Daniel's family are all innocent, too much hated against the family. Wong is very dodgy to me. You're a great host, Daniel. Truthful, go with the evidence. I appreciate that. That's what I try to do. And I'm still giving Wong and everybody else the benefit of the doubt. And I've given Wong the benefit of the doubt and Justin Smith. I mean, I've heard about Justin Smith for some time as well. You know, I wasn't 100% sure on the fact that Wong, see, the one thing that was news to me was that Wong told him that it was Daniel's car out there, and that Justin told law enforcement. I found that out with everybody else. And so with that being said, I got to put some eye drops. I'll be right back. But so with that being said, to me, I just kind of thought that was the case there. I found that out with everybody. And thank you, Deanne, Killeen. Appreciate that. Give me a second, guys. I'm putting in some, my contacts are too dry. Long story short, everybody always asks me why I wear the shades. I have an eye on this called keratoconus. And long story short, lights bother me. And so, the cornea in the eye is going to continue to cone out. Eventually I'll go blind in my right eye. Hopefully it's not anytime soon. All right, let's see. Did Wong ever allow them to search his property? I don't know the answer for sure, but from what I understand, the answer is no. Why would either of them wait that long to tell the police? That's a good question. That's a good observation. Why would they wait so long to tell police about about what they saw if it was so important? Thank you, Barbara. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. Justin Smith spoke to RCMP May 2nd about traffic. It's on radio chatter. I'd have to go and listen to that. But the documents indicate that they didn't speak to him until May 17th. And this was after he spoke to Wong. And that's what's in the RCMP documents. I don't know if another neighbor may have came forward, or maybe perhaps that was Wong that was trying to say that. I don't know, but it sounds like he didn't speak to law enforcement until May 9th. So, I mean, that's what the documents say. But Justin said he drove to the pipeline with a pipeline from Justin's house. All right, well, let's pull that up real quick. Let's pull it up. The pipeline from Justin's house. Now, from Justin's house is going to be a little bit different, right? Because where Justin was technically staying and where he lived are like three different places. So this is where I believe his girlfriend, where he was staying with his girlfriend in one of these places out here. I believe this is where he lived with his mom. And at the time of the disappearance was mainly staying here. But the night of the disappearance, from what I am hearing from very credible sources, is that this is where he was staying, which makes sense based on what he is saying he heard. He's saying he heard a vehicle somewhere in this area by Daniel's house heading out towards the area where the blanket was, by the railroad tracks off of Lansdowne Road. If he was staying at his girlfriend's house, or his ex-girlfriend who left him, if he was staying here, that's way too far to be able to hear what's going on there. And this is even further away if he was staying at mom's. So it makes more sense that this was the location he was that night, and how he can at least claim that he heard the things that he heard. And where is the pipeline? So the pipeline goes way up here. So this cleared out area right here, this is the pipeline. All right. And so the blanket was right here, which is 1.6 kilometers away from Daniel's house. Now, if you go through this road, up this trail right here, only a kilometer away, it's not very far, you end up in the middle of the pipeline where the boot print was found. So to me, this is still the biggest piece of evidence. It's still pretty dang big piece of evidence to me. But for Wong and Justin to have heard, I mean, it's not impossible for them to hear. Apparently, from what I understand, Wong has a very loud vehicle that can be heard multiple times. I got a video from another neighbor. I just can't show it because this other neighbor that's in the area, I would dox who they are, or at least where they're located. You can tell where they are. You can see some things. So I can't do that. But they have sent me video of him driving around in the late hours, early morning hours, several times. And so take that for what it is. Just don't know what the neighbor would gain by killing. Well, I mean, who would gain from taking the lives of two little kids? And again, it sounds like he was under, at least had a problem with drugs at one point in his life. I can't say that's the case today. I don't know. I don't know the guy. But at one point he did. And if he still struggled with those things can make a irrational person do irrational things very easily. Richard Allen was railroaded in the Delphi case. I mean, I don't know about that. I question if there was somebody else that was involved. But if you look at his statement of when he arrived, talked about the three girls that were walking out. There was a video, or there was three girls that came forward and talked about the interaction that they had with him. And there was a timestamp of their time at the park right before they had that encounter of 1:26 when they took a selfie on a bench. That selfie had timestamped and everything else. And so once you correlate the evidence and what Richard Allen said himself about him going to the bridge and standing on the bridge, it would have been nearly impossible. I mean, I've done the numbers of somebody walking at pace, the entire thing. We broke it down. It would have been impossible for it to have been somebody else. And given what he said he claimed to have done after the fact, he said that he went and sat on a bench. Well, the person that he had seen, or that had seen him, that walked in, and then as they turned around and walked away and they saw Libby and Abby as they were walking towards the bridge, that person stayed on that trail and walked back and forth 2 more times and never saw that guy that was on the bridge ever again. He wasn't sitting on anything else. And then you go and you look at if you go and look at the video of Bridge Guy, go look at the one that's the most recent one, the one that was released, the 43 seconds. You see more of him, and you see how far away he is from Libby, from Abby, and it's not that far away. And you can definitely see that the man in there is super short based off of that alone. But some other indications, if you zoom in and you want to determine whether or not this guy was a small guy or a big guy, if you look at the pants on the pants legs, there where the knee is, it's lower on his leg. And also the bottom part of the pant is a lighter shade of blue than at the very lowest part. There's about 2 inches of, about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of a lighter shaded blue, an indication of somebody rolling up their pants. The other thing is the way he steps. He has to step up and far out to step on the railroad ties. Somebody who is taller will end up having an effect of a high water action on the bottom of their pants. Pant level would come up when you raise up and reach out. He doesn't ever have that effect. All of those things are indicating of somebody who's short. We also have to take into consideration the area and the location of where they were at. This is Delphi, Indiana. This isn't some major metropolitan or major city where he can go and get his clothes fitted for his height and weight. And so for a guy who's vertically challenged, like Richard Allen, who lives in an area where your only means of clothing is what you can buy at the grocery or at the stores that are local to where you're at, you're going to have problems finding clothes that's going to fit you. So when you look at all aspects of his clothing, the top part of his sweater, it's also scrunched up at the arms, another indication that the person's arms are shorter. The brown shirt that sticks out of underneath the sweater is extendedly long. I mean, to the point where a lot of people thought it was a fanny pack, but it's not. It's a shirt. And the reason why it's that way is because, again, when you are living in an area where you can only purchase clothing that is, an XL for you, if you have to wear an XL, it's the same shirt that the next guy who has to wear an XL, who's 5'11", has to wear. And when you're 5'5", it's going to look like that on you. It's going to look long. And so also, not to mention, the guy's feet look very small when he was walking across. So yeah, no way in hell it's not Richard Allen on that bridge. But could there have been somebody else involved? Could there have been somebody at the bottom of the bridge, somebody helping him? I don't know. I don't put it past that. But the rest of that, 100%, that's Richard Allen on the bridge. He confessed to it. He talked about the white van that only he would have known about, and a round of ammunition that circulated out of his gun was found underneath, buried underneath the body of one of the victims. So there's quite a bit there to say that was him. I just, could there have been more? Maybe, but when you look at every aspect of that, especially the guy's clothing and the way he walks, you can 100% tell that guy's a short dude. Sorry about going off too far into the Richard Allen case. Let's see. I was suspicious when the guy was at the closed down park on the day of the disappearance with this Justin. No, that was Daniel's friend that came to help. They pulled up and they were going to go help find the kids. I think that was Chance. The names are in the RCMP. But that was Daniel's friend. I don't think it was this guy. What's going on, Kent? Oh, yeah. So there was some other stuff I wanted to bring up. Thank you for reminding me, guys. Let me pull this up real quick. Because a lot of people were pointing out some things that I wanted to bring up. And this one too. All right. Let me pull this down real quick. All right. So this is Earl Martell and some of the things that he had said. He said, well, shaking the apple tree paid off in dividends. 2 more names to look at real close. A lot of people were wondering what he was talking about. He's talking about Brad Wong and Justin Smith. In my opinion, he's probably talking about because of their history and their past. From what I understand, Justin Smith doesn't have the cleanest arrest record either. I'm still working on it, and I guarantee you I'm going to find out the answers. I found some things already. I haven't gotten them all. But if anybody has any information on it, please email me at drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com. But what is he talking about? In my opinion, the 2 names that he was saying to go and look at are Bradley Wong and Justin Smith. I think he wants people to look into who they are and figure out who they are. That's Justin Smith. He goes on to say, thanks to Lindsey Jones for the push to shake things up. Your turn to get the truth on them too. Have fun. You love your job. Saying, all right. And I agree, all these news medias have come forward. All right. And you got to want to question this. All these news media teams have come forward saying all this stuff like, oh, we have a neighbor and a witness saying this stuff. Well, these are the same media people that know who Bradley Wong is because they're the ones that reported him. I mean, it's not that hard to find. Let's see, where is it at? This is from the Chronicle Herald. This is from Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers. So it's not like they weren't aware that that Bradley Wong had a history, and there was this big old thing not too long ago. You know, they put this out there as if there was like this law-abiding citizen neighbor who was, you know, just chilling in a very cold morning outside for no apparent reason, seeing all this thing go down, and then having to go and try to convince his friend that he heard and saw the same thing. All right, and try to point in one direction or another. All right, why didn't they look into who these guys are? Why wasn't that brought up? Because I guarantee you, if Daniel did do something, if Daniel did and he gets arrested, for one, Daniel Martell is not a hill that I'm willing to die on. If something comes out and says that he was guilty, I follow the evidence, I follow the facts. That's where I'm going to go to. I'm going to say, hey, that's the case. But up to this point, I haven't seen anything yet, right? But what I have seen is some suspicious, inconsistent. I know a lot of people like to say inconsistencies. Some inconsistent stuff in this case here when it comes to this man. It's interesting things. Let's see. Chris Dawson goes, Daniel's family are all innocent, much against the family of the Wong. Oh, okay. Yeah, we already got that one. Thank you. I have another one. Allegedly speculating $5. Can you verify the criminal record with Wong? Haven't been here. If you have already, I apologize. Yeah. 31-year-old Bradley Mitchell Wong out of Lansdowne and 36-year-old Thomas Fulton of Rockland have been charged with break and entering, 2 counts of possession, property obtained by crime, and 2 counts of theft under $5,000. Wong is also charged with possession of a controlled substance. The vehicle driven by the subjects, a light blue Subaru Outback containing stolen property, was seized. Here's a picture of what much of that property that was seized, including a bunch of guns. You know, like I said, these guns are typically taken from inside somebody's house. You know, some of these things you might take from a shed storage, you know, those type of thing, an outdoor area. Some of these things you're not. And again, this one here goes in to say that there was that this was in efforts with a team effort between, where was it at? I had it here before. A targeted effort to reduce property crime in the area. Found there were 20% increase, blah, blah, blah. Truly a team effort. Couldn't be happier with the results. Our members have been handing out flyers about residents to lock their belongings. All right. He said they used ATVs to make patrols, seasonal homes, put stickers on doors to show owners that they check their properties. We even been working with volunteer fire. So here's the other thing too. So it sounds like these people were hitting like vacant homes or homes that were under construction and things of that nature. Now, if you're hitting a home, a lot of people think that people will get hit at night. And it's still a possibility, especially if you're not there. But most of the people aren't there during the day. And a lot of times people get hit during the day while they're at work. So just FYI. Investigators received several tips and pieces of information from the public. They say helped pull the operation together. Investigators were assisted by Nova Scotia RCMP Division Crime Analysis. And there was somebody else. I read it earlier. But this is one couple of the things that I was able to find. Thank you, allegedly speculating, for bringing up your comment. Let's see. Hard to butt dial Messenger? Not really. It's happened before. I've I've butt dialed a lot of people on Facebook, on Instagram, on a lot of things. And then it's anecdotal, and I understand that, but butt dials are not that uncommon. But again, she was up at 8:20, so the possibility for her of having a butt dial 8 minutes later, or even making a phone call to her mom, is not out of the realm of possibility. And if her mom didn't answer, that could be the reason why she fell asleep. Right? You know, her mom didn't answer, she fell asleep, and if her mom answered, maybe she would have stayed awake. And yeah, she passed out, and things happened. Daniel knows woods were searched well. Yeah, the woods being searched well and stuff is one thing, but finding something and missing something, those are completely separate things. I strongly believe that if the kids are out in the woods, that there's still that possibility there, and that the cadaver dogs just missed. There was some things that I had seen. I don't think I highlighted them yet. I was reading through here, and it talks about the air scent dog that is looking for human beings per se, not something specifically. That's what the kind of dogs that they'd used. I had highlighted a few things. I hadn't gone through it all yet. It kind of looks like I'm missing some of the things I highlighted. I wonder where everything I highlighted went. Oh, you know what? Because I'm on the wrong one. I haven't even read that one yet. Here it is. And so, see right here, it says on May 2nd, she got a missed call from Leigh at 8:28. But let me see if I can find where it says that she had woken up at 8:20. I may not have highlighted it here. But even people were like trying to, a lot of people were confusing a lot of things that were on here. I think I have it on my other one that I was looking at. I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, she apparently at 8:20. Here it is. Malia heard kids playing in her bedroom around 8 a.m. They woke Meadow up, so she took him to her bed and turned the TV off and faded in and out of sleep. The kids were giggling and talking next to each other. The kids were in the room next to theirs. They were loud. Heard silence. She said Daniel didn't hear the kids around 10. But there was another spot that said at 8:28 or around 8:20 is when she had woken up, because they had woken up Meadow. It may have been on one of the other ones, the other documents, not the one that was just recently released, which I'd have to go through, and it'll be a long process. Let's see. Drugs affect those tests. But it's not just the tests, it's also the evidence. There's more to an investigation. You have to look at it from the whole thing. This is kind of like in the Brian Koberger case, when people would come in and say, oh, Brian Koberger's innocent. His phone could have been off for this reason, or, what was the other things that they would say about him? That his phone could have been off for a number of reasons, that he was over here. There was a bunch of different things, right? And I'm like, one of the things that the Probergers used to love to do is they would try to explain one thing, but not everything. They would try to manipulate people's thoughts into siding with their narrative by only pointing at one piece of evidence and saying, hey, his phone could have turned off for a number of reasons, but not addressing, for instance, the DNA. That was the other thing. So somebody would say, hey, he could have, found a knife and knife sheath at a garage, a garage sale, picked it up and put it down. That's how his DNA got on it. But they would only answer one part with some outlandish thing. And then I would say, all right, so let's put your entire story together. So Brian Koberger was out there at a garage sale, and the killer, who just so happened to drive the same car, knew he was out that night, just so happened to took the lives of these victims at the exact same time that his phone turns off, is also behind him at this garage sale purchasing things he just touched. Like, once you start putting all the facts into it, it just doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of how I see this case going. I see a lot of people coming in with like a one piece of evidence situation where they're like, oh, well, a narcissist can pass a lie detector test. Like, okay, well, how does he pass, his phone being downloaded, his locations, his records? How is it that law enforcement can't find a thing based off of all the other evidence? I mean, it's great you're pointing out one piece of evidence, but what about the rest? How does the rest fit? That's kind of why I use the analogy of Sudoku. For those that don't know what Sudoku is, it's a game where the object of the game is you have 9 squares, or you have 9 rows going across, 9 rows going down, and you have to put each one of these are divided into 9 blocks also, kind of like a tic-tac-toe looking thing with a bunch of lines going horizontal and vertical. And you have to put 1 through 9 through it, across, sideways, and in that box. And you can't have two of the same. So you can't have a 1 in on the first line in the first box and a 1 in the first line on the third box, because it doesn't fit. So that's kind of how I look at the evidence. I look at it from, all right, it fits this way, but does it fit, coming from this other angle? How does this piece of information fit once we factor in that, let's say the drug aspect with Daniel? How does the drug aspect factor in? It sounds like a great idea up front. It'll fit one way if you're looking at it. Looks good. But how does it fit when you factor in the evidence? Where's the, in order for somebody to get drugs, they either have to make it or purchase it, right? And so if they're making it, where's the purchase of the chemicals? If he's making it and he's selling it, where's the buys? Where's the customers? Where's the financial receipts that are coming in and out? Where, and I'm not talking about like bank account solely. I'm talking about, where's the evidence of him having more money than he is making out of his job, because they have his financial records and they have everything else. Where's the abundance of sales or abundance of purchases that is overgoing what he is bringing in, right? So you have that aspect. You also have the fact that they have to meet somewhere to purchase or sell or transfer the drugs for money or funds. Where is that happening? Where is that being set up? How are they getting there? There's a bunch of things that have to happen for those things to take place, that once you start factoring, well, they have his phone, they have his financial records, they have his locations, they have all these things. It would have been very easy to determine whether or not this was some sort of drug deal gone bad or whatever the case may have been. It's not hard to solve those type of crimes. You know what I'm saying? Hope that all makes sense. I've been able to verify this information. It's in public record and it's on multiple news articles. Multiple news articles. What other information are you referring to? Why did RCMP not just get a warrant for Wong's property early on in the search, speculating knowing his criminal past? Because you can't get a warrant just because of somebody's criminal past. Now, if he was on parole, maybe, and again, I don't know the laws in Canada, so I'm not sure about that. But what evidence do you have that says anything? You know what I'm saying? So you need probable cause to get a warrant. And, if you found something that could get you that right away, then sure. I'm sure the ball would have gotten rolling and things would have happened pretty quick. But what evidence do we have that would give us a probable cause affidavit so that they could search him? Just him saying no. You have a right to say no. Saying no to law enforcement isn't. Again, I'm not familiar with Canada's laws, but law enforcement needs probable cause to do a search, not just, hey, mere speculation. You need probable cause. And in my opinion, it would have been very difficult to get probable cause based off somebody that just lives close to the area and has a past. If I was a judge, I'd say, so what? What evidence do you have that the kids were there? I would have said, hey, go fingerprint that trash can, go take DNA swabs of that blanket and things of that nature, and come back when you find something that kind of points in his direction. That's honestly what I would have said if I was the judge. And so I don't know what if there was anything that was found on the blanket. It doesn't appear that they fingerprinted the trash can, which sounds ridiculous. I think they should have, just to see if there was anybody who touched it that shouldn't have touched it, such as Bradley Wong. And it sounds to me that all they did was take the rest of the blanket out of the trash can and didn't do the rest. So and given how much time has passed, it would be difficult to now say, oh, we went back and now we have this. Well, okay. It would have been hard. So yeah, to me, if I was a sitting judge and they came in and said, hey, we got this guy who refused to let us search his place. Okay. What is your probable cause to violate his rights? Because he has a right to say no. I assume, I'm not sure with the rights in Canada, but in the United States, you have the right to say no. You don't have, and you also have the right to terminate a search at any point. Now, again, I don't know the rules in Canada. They may not be the same, but in America, you do. So you better be on your P's and Q's if you're going to go and do that at that point. I don't think they have it. I don't think they have anything yet, which is why I said, to me, at this point, the reason why I still feel it's more likely that they wandered off than any of that is because of that. You know, they've had plenty of time to try to figure out something on Wong. But just because they don't, just doesn't mean that they could just be in a situation where they're in between a rock and a hard spot. But yeah, his criminal past is not enough to get somebody a warrant. Let's see. What's going on, Deanne? Good to see you. Darwood goes, there's no Woods, there's no murder, there's no stranger abduction, in my opinion. I mean, I get it. I mean, and you have a right to your opinion, Darwood. I've always said this, you know, anybody does, but Justin Smith, I mean, I'd have to listen to it. I've not actually heard the dispatch that's out there. And do they say Justin Smith or just that somebody said that they heard something? I mean, it could have been a lot of people, but the documents indicate, and I can bring them up real quick, that, I mean, you can point out that there, you know, send me an email with the dispatch audio that says that. And I'm more than happy to listen to it. I've been looking for it because I wanted to hear when it is that they found the pink blanket. So if you have that, send it to me. I appreciate it. I'll listen to it. Well, let's see. Okay. Let me scroll down just so I can show you where it says when Justin Smith spoke to law enforcement, because it's here in black and white. Let's find it real quick. Witness statements. We're getting close. There's Wong right here. On May 17th, 2025, Donaldson took a statement from Justin Smith, who lives in the area where Jack and Lilly went missing. And it says number 19. It says here, May 22nd, I read a task action report with ID 515 written by Donaldson dated May 17th, detailing Justin Smith's statement. So, and he also goes in to talk about exactly who informed him of what and when. It says later spoke with Brad Wong, who informed him Daniel's vehicle came 465 times that night. So it don't sound like this happened that day. But yeah, send me that dispatch stuff. I'll listen to it and see what it says. Let's see, a couple of stars. That is a tall drink of water. Yeah, I drink a lot of water. Justin Smith could be any relation to Malaya brother Hayden. I don't know. I've not confirmed anything like that. That's a good point. CA Broken says, if Mr. Wong did witness the vehicle, wouldn't you think he would have gone to RCMP immediately, knowing 2 children were missing? Hey, what's going on? Derwood says, hey, Daniel, keep digging. I'm digging. Let's see. Lori comes in saying, do you think Justin Smith is related to Hayden? His father is a Smith. I don't know. I'll look into it. Now that there's been multiple comments about it, I'll look into it. But Smith is a common name. I mean, this is how common Smith's name is. In May of 2012, 4 people were charged in connection to a break-in robbery. And this goes on to say that there were masked men attempting to leave. This is when officers arrived to an apartment in connection to a robbery call. They were met by 2 masked men attempting to leave, one whom was carrying a handgun. Apartment quickly was secured and a loaded handgun was located. Police arrested 3 men and a male youth. The 2 men and 2 women inside of the apartment at the time of the incident. One suspect touched one of the women in a sexual manner. And then he goes on to say, Randall Thomas faced, it says all the things that they charged him. And it says here that Justin Smith faces charges of possession of stolen property. And it says here 19-year-old Justin Michael Joseph Smith. So Justin Smith is a common name. From what I understand, he had 19 in 2012, I think puts him at about possibly 32, 33 years old. And from what I understand is that Justin Smith in this case is a little bit older. So it's a common name. I'd have to look into it. But more sounds like a lot of people are saying this, so it should be interesting. Oh, I appreciate that, Rhonda. Yeah, it's catacatonis, I think is how it's pronounced. And it's the coney in my eye is going to eventually cone out, and I'll go blind. Here recently, my vision has gotten horrible. It's probably from looking at all these screens, to be honest with you. I'm having to go back and check it out. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, and you're not knowing anybody allegedly speculating. You have some great questions. You want to make sure that the information is accurate. I get it. They just don't investigate him soon enough because that one tip they missed. I'm not sure. Oh, are you talking about Richard Allen? They just don't investigate him soon enough because of that one tip. Had they investigated him sooner, I think they would. You see, the thing with Delphi is that you had Keegan Kline and you had Ron Logan. And both of these guys looked really good for the crime. And I get why most people still believe that they may have something to do with it. I completely understand it. It's kind of like this case, too, where in the Richard Allen case, I, too, would have been on the side of everybody who is saying, hey, Ron Logan looks suspicious. Hey, Keegan Kline looks suspicious, until the evidence had a difference. I would have been the same thing with Daniel and Janie and Malaya. Hey, these guys look suspicious. But as the evidence has come out, and as I understand how law enforcement investigate crimes and things of that nature, and as I listen to what it is that they say and what they don't say, it's made it pretty clear of where their stance is at this point. And they know a lot more than me or anybody else that's covering this case on YouTube, probably tenfold. And so I would be foolish not to follow what it is that they knew and the information they had and the information that they're putting out there, and favor information that is maybe, needless to say, impossible to figure out, or maybe not impossible, but like information that is filled with a pure speculation because we don't know all the answers. In a case like this where law enforcement know things, and obviously they know things they're not telling us because this information was known back in May and we're barely finding it out. So if this information is being withheld, there's probably some more things that we know about or that we don't know about that's being withheld. And so, when there's things that we don't know, it's only human nature for people to try to fill it in. It's kind of like where that, what is it called? Pareidolia, where people see faces and things, is because the mind is something that wants to fill in the spaces. They want to fill in the blanks and things like that. And when you don't have all the answers and you think you do, you start filling in the information in between with information that may be wrong and is definitely sometimes not within the realm of the evidence. And in many times contradict what the evidence is telling us. And so it's very easy to fall into that. And in order to not fall into that, you have to take a step back, try to review everything and not jump to a conclusion. That's kind of what I do in every one of these situations. I could have been like, oh, neighbor said something. That means Daniel did something. And instead of saying, all right, who, what, when, where, and why? Who is this neighbor? What are they saying? When did they say it? Why are they saying it? And so much more. And then once you start to answer those questions, it starts to open up a little bit of a picture. Now, it's not clear because we don't know all the information. I'm aware of that. I don't have all the information. And so that's why up to this point, I hadn't even named this guy. I've kept it to myself. It's just weird that the guy that I was keeping to myself, trying to figure out, is there a way to, say that there's this possibility out there? Because I guarantee you, if Daniel ever gets arrested, whether he did something or not, his attorneys are going to look at Wong and Smith and look at their background and the fact that they were up that night. They the ones that said it. So they were up that night. They were in the area because of where they live. So there you have two things there. You have two guys that have a possible criminal history. I say possible because Justin Smith, I'm not sure about. I've heard some things, but I've not yet been able to confirm it like I have with Wong. And so you have two guys that possibly have a criminal history up at an odd hour of the night on a Friday, going in from Thursday night to Friday morning. So it's not like it was like a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, going in from Saturday night to Saturday morning, where people, might be up because of work and stuff, or might be up because they don't have work and stuff and partying for the weekend or whatever the case may be. Thursday night, odd hour of the night, both of these people up hearing something similar, and nobody else in the neighborhood hears it. But they're both up and in the area the night before the kids go missing. And this is based off of what they said. And so if I was Daniel's lawyer, and if, Daniel ever got arrested, I would 100% have third party suspects. And I would 100% be naming these guys. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Just kind of saying that that's these people would have been involved in this case based off the things that they said, their history, their past, and everything in between. It'll be interesting, if it ever happens. I doubt it. I don't think that there's anything here that RCMP has said that kind of points in Daniel's direction at this point. Like I said, they've kind of said the opposite. So take that for what it is. Why am I yelling? I don't think I'm yelling. Am I yelling? Let's see. Full house tonight. Yeah. I'm the past possibility. Is it entire possible? But I don't know what I did if that's the case. If so, it's okay. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Is everyone allowed to ask questions? Yeah, go ahead. Ask your questions. Put a couple of stars. Just make sure your question puts a couple of stars so that way I can see it. And I'll probably be doing this for the next 10 minutes or so. What at the time RA arrived was in fact earlier, though. The problem with that is that he described an incident with 3 or 4 juveniles that were walking out of the park at the same time that he was walking into the park. They made contact with those 3 juveniles who described the same event of when they were walking out of the park that they saw an older man walking into the park. And right before that, about 3 minutes prior to, about 1:26 a.m., those girls had took a selfie on a bench in the middle of the park. That photo has a timestamp of when it is that they took it. So now that we have been able to confirm that they both matched the story that they said of them coming in and leaving, then you corroborate that with the hard evidence of the screen of the selfie that they took on the bench. It makes it impossible for it to have been earlier. Impossible. But I understand why some might think that, but it's impossible. Let's see. But yeah, ask your questions. Doing this for about another 5-10 minutes. I'm almost actually to the bottom, actually. They aren't hiding the children. They know where they are, in my opinion, of course. So Durwood thinks that there's a good possibility that Malaya had the reservation CPS pick up the kids because of one thing or another, mainly because Malaya didn't want the kids to be, I guess, Canadian CPS was investigating it. She'd rather have investigating them, and she'd rather have the kids go to the reservation where she could have access and things of that nature. And I understand the premise behind it. I totally get it, but I think it's just a lot easier for the reservation CPS to have signed, get something legal and say, hey, we're going to start taking care of custody of the kids or whatever reason. Now, I know that they have status now, but at the time of the disappearance, they didn't. And so I struggle with why the CPS from reservation would even bother to do something so elaborate for somebody who's not status. The kids aren't status, and again, like, who is she for them to want to go out of their way to do something like this? I do understand that there's apparently the reservation and RCMP, or the Canadians, are not always seeing eye to eye on everything. And so, that makes things look kind of, I guess, suspicious. So, and he's got questions because of Malaya's behavior. And I get it. I get 100% why people would question her for it. There's a lot of it there that that makes me struggle with it being a possibility. But right to your opinion, 100%. Oh my God, the word inconsistency traumatized me now. I hear you. Let's see. And I'm going to go through these couple of stars and I'll answer your questions. Do I still work in law enforcement, or are you retired? I did not retire. I was only in law enforcement for a few years. I haven't been in law enforcement for a very long time. It's been about almost 20 years, about 18 years or so since I've been in law enforcement. I was only in for a little bit. Long story short, and I kind of explained this last night, I've had a series of injuries throughout my entire career and post-career too. The injuries don't stop. I was laughing about it last night. I was like, man, I've had my fair share of it. While I was in law enforcement, I hurt my back, I hurt my ankle and my knee. While I played football, I hurt my wrist, my elbow. But post law enforcement career, I ruptured my Achilles. I've had a serious injury to my arm. So it's not just because of that. But long story short, I was in law enforcement, had a series of injuries, had a friend of mine who was making a tremendous amount of money doing other things and not risking their lives. And so I kind of transitioned into that. And I've opened up a couple of businesses since. I do a lot of real estate stuff now. Own a few houses, get rent. Sometimes some of the houses that I've purchased here recently or in the past have been the BRRRR. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, where you buy, rehab, rent, renovate, or renovate and rent, and then perhaps sell. I've done that a handful of times. And so, I've love and miss law enforcement. Don't get me wrong, but the opportunities that I've had for my family and stuff since then and moving on have been tremendous. And I wouldn't change it. Even though the injuries suck, and boy, did they. Broken ribs. I forgot about that one. Even though they sucked, it was and I miss it. I wouldn't change anything. But it's been a while. And so that's kind of one of the things too, where I talk about, like, for instance, I've mentioned it, that when I first started in law enforcement, police cars were using VHS video. And when I got out, we were barely using DVDs. And so shortly after I got out, about 5-10 years later, they started using the digital stuff where it would download, because I still had friends in the department and things. They started utilizing, like after I left, they started utilizing the computer stuff inside the car. So there's a lot of stuff that law enforcement are doing today that I'm not familiar with, as far as like their tech and how they're able to capture certain criminals and things of that nature. When I was in, it was more old school, it was more old fashioned, more digging and things like that. And so, with that understanding too, covering cases and true crime, like I've been in communications with so many people in law enforcement, and victim family members and things of that nature. And I've also connected with a lot of good people that have done some amazing things in their career. Like I mentioned, I was recently the ex-LEO or law enforcement officer on a panel with a former retired FBI and a former LA prosecutor, Philip Dubé. That happened recently. I've had both of them on my channel. I've had a medical death forensic investigator on the channel. I've had a detective on the channel, a homicide detective on the channel. I've had Howard Bloom, renowned author and journalist for the New York Times, Airmail, and other places. He's been on the channel. I've had, I've had so many, Anjanette Levy from Crime Fix on the channel. So many others. Like if you go and watch, like for instance, some of these Brian Koberger Amazon or whatever. Sometimes you'll see me come out. Actually, quite often you'll see me come out in those programs. But everybody that's come out in those programs have come out on my channel. Almost everybody. It's very, very few. So I pride myself on bringing a professional group. I mean, I'm also forgetting Dr. Vona, who's a doctor in psychology and a professional on her own. So, that's kind of what I try to bring to the table is a professional stance. And like I said, I'm probably forgetting so many people, and I hate that because there's and that's just a professional. I mean, I've had Steve Gonsalves on the channel, father of Kaylee Gonsalves. I've had Christy on the channel, mother of Kaylee Gonsalves. I've spoken with the DoorDash driver. I've spoken with multiple persons involved in that case as well. In the Timothy D's case, I'm talking with his mom as well. In that case, I've talked to Kathleen Turner's mom. She went missing for a while. Her body was found not too long ago out here in Houston. I've had her family on the channel. We try to be as professional and as high level as we can. And, for those that can't handle that, we time them out. And so it is what it is. Thank you for your question. And with that being said, I'm going to just scroll through it really fast, see if there's anything else I see. I was just making an observation how lie detector tests are just a total investigator's tool. One of many, 100% a total investigator's tool, just like the IgG that got Brian Koberger, another tool that's inadmissible in court, but a tool that was used that inevitably helped find Brian Koberger. Lie detector test is just a tool, but it's an effective one. And it's one that points in the right direction of one way or the other. And so it's not admissible because it's to protect the defendant, not the state. And a situation where the defendant comes out truthful, those lie detector tests usually find their way into the court. Dolls, give it a rest. The kids are definitely hidden. Oh, I don't know. Me too. I have butt dialed. I've butt dialed. I don't know how many people. And one of the main persons that I've butt dialed are my parents. My parents have butt dialed me all the time, especially my father. It's happened quite a bit. Sometimes I think he gets it so I can call him. But it's always a good conversation to have. So what now? What will police do, TT? Good question. What now? I don't think there's much that they're going to do, unless Wong or Smith come out. Maybe they feel the pressure, because I'm sure once everybody starts digging into who these folks are, that pressure is going to come out on top of them. Maybe they come out and say something, and maybe perhaps that helps get a warrant, because that's the first step. Is getting a warrant, getting probable cause. Once you get that, then all the dominoes will fall. Now, I don't know this. Maybe law enforcement has already gone down this road. Maybe they've investigated him and they've cleared him too. That's 100% possible. I don't know. That's why and I've said this since the beginning. Just because I can't deduce the information that says that makes him suspicious to me, doesn't mean that law enforcement haven't been able to do it. That's just me personally. I understand that. DT, I was told that my right eye may go blind too. Looking to stop the deterioration. Spooky 2 sounds promising. Sorry about your eyes. Oh, yeah, it sucks. Lori comes in with $27.99. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate that. Thank you. Is Daniel related to Jeremy McKenzie? I have no idea. That's the first time I've ever heard of Jeremy McKenzie. Could be, could not be. Let's see. Well, DT keeps stated it. He doesn't know the Canadian justice system. I'm being polite and commenting. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't mean I'm wrong about my suspicions on things. It's not uncommon for somebody to bring in an outsider to a department so that they can help. Like, for instance, here in the United States, the FBI is brought in quite a bit when local law enforcement are stumped, things of that nature. So just because I'm not from the area, or I'm not 100% within, the terms of things. Doesn't mean that the criminals commit crimes differently out there. It doesn't mean that the criminals in Canada all of a sudden follow some random or some other means of motives or what's the word I'm looking for? Their means of committing crimes. Doesn't mean that the Canadians all of a sudden, well, Canadians don't do this, what Americans do. So like if a, American killer visits the crime scene multiple times, right? A Canadian killer won't do that because they're from the other side, just a few feet away on the other side of a line. No, that's not true either. Right. The MO, there you go. That was the motive operandus. An MO of a person, what they do is not something that's going to change based on who they, where they're from. People are all relatively similar, curiosity killed the cat. I've said that with Brian Koberger. That's why he went back out there at that early morning hours at 9 a.m. He knew the red flags and he knew what not to do because of his studies, and that prevented him from going back. But most serial killers, offenders will go back to the crime scene. They'll visit, they'll take trophies, those type of things. And so just because, this is a Canadian disappearance doesn't mean that I would be unable to figure out some things based off of common knowledge of law enforcement techniques and strategies. I find it funny that people think that, like when I said, whatever it is that Canada calls their states, which I know now is province, but, I didn't at that time. Like that all of a sudden makes everything I said was wrong. I mean, maybe perhaps you should question yourself if the guy that doesn't live there is getting more things right. Maybe you should question yourself. And I'm not saying you personally, Kim. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about those that were questioning me about saying, oh, this guy doesn't even know that it's a province. So what? What difference does it make? State, province, does it change the facts? Does it change the situation? Does it change the techniques of how law enforcement try to figure out something? Don't change it to me. And again, I wasn't pointing that towards you. I was just remembering of all the comments from that. Yeah, I am from the States. I am not from Canada. Although I wasn't initially, I was raised in Texas, but I was born in Minnesota. So wasn't too far away from Canada when I first started life. So let's see. Yeah, Smith is the most common surname, 100%. That's a common surname. I couldn't tell you. Any connection to Malaya and Bradley Wong? Did they know each other at all? I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't seen any connection there. So I have no idea. Canadian true crime. It should be illegal for those AI channels. Man, I wouldn't disagree with that. Those AI channels are horrible. Let's see. Newest member, we got Veska Claire, and then we have C. Vanderhoof coming in for 21 months. All righty, guys. Well, I just broke the 2-hour mark. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything real quick. Have they searched anything that like ships, boats, beach homes? That's what it says in the documents that they did, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Is Daniel related to Jeremy McKenzie? I have no idea. I'll ask. What do you think about Elvis Fields' spit story? That one was, if there was somebody that I said that needed to be more investigated, it was Elvis Fields. I didn't put it past the realm of possibility that Richard Allen didn't do this alone and that maybe somebody else could have been involved. And Elvis Fields is quite possible that person that could have been involved. I don't know. So this Justin Smith was at Lorda Park morning Jack and Lily went missing. That's what I understand. That's what I understand. And to be honest with you, and this will be the last thing that I bring up, it makes more sense that he was there based on the information of what he was saying, because this is where his girlfriend, where in this general area is where he lived with his girlfriend. And this general area, I believe, is where his mom lived. Now, I might have those situations backwards. This might be his girlfriend and his mom down there, but I don't think, I'm like 90% positive it's this way. And then, for him to have heard a vehicle passing by and then going around where the railroad tracks were and stuff, it's still a bit of a ways away for him to have done that, for him to have heard all that going back and forth that direction. But it makes more sense him being here to have had that as a possibility than him being way the heck over here or way the heck over here, which, I mean, dude, look at that. That's weird. This is the pipeline. And this is a home that is related to Justin Smith. The pipeline that curves up, goes around, and oh wait, never mind. That's not the right pipeline. I mean, it could be. If you follow this, it's really close to the pipeline. So you have this area. The pipeline comes in this way, not that far away, and then this is the same pipeline where the boot print is. Interesting. So just food for thought. The pipeline's not that far from where he used to live. But again, I'm not saying that this guy had something to do with it. I just think that, in my opinion, based on what he said about what Wong told him, it seems like it's more the other way. I think that it was Wong trying to convince him of what he heard. Interesting. Abby goes, that Lorda Park did have a playground of any types, and it was close enough for the children to walk to. Thank you. I don't know. That's an interesting point. It does look like I don't know. Maple syrup for sale. All fishing closed. Development Association. I mean, it could be. I don't know if there would be a park there. That's a good point. It's an interesting point. See, that's why it's good to have these conversations. You guys bring up some good stuff sometimes, or a lot of times. I don't want to sound horrible. That sounded bad. You guys bring up a lot of good stuff, and I'm serious. I'm being 100% serious. You guys do. Like, majority of the stuff that I have found has been through the help of a lot of folks that have followed and helped me find some things. Just like the Brian Koberger case, and I surround myself around some good, smart people that help me out. On my team, we have everything from lawyers to prosecutors to which is how we end up getting some of the the FOIAs here in the States. That is, we're able to get that pretty quickly and stuff. We got everything from folks that just professionals to those that just care very much about the family and about what we're doing here. And so our team is well rounded. I'm going to try to find this out. All righty, guys. I keep saying that that's the last one, and that one is going to be it. That's going to be the last one. I want to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'll probably be back on tomorrow night, if not Tuesday. I was talking with Dr. Vona. We're going to see if we can have her on again sometime this week talking about this case. So make sure you comment, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. You guys know what to do. I don't know why I'm so low on this chair right here. You guys know what to do. Ring the notification bell. I'll see you guys in a couple of days. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Does the information seem valid to you anymore? Does it seem like something suspicious? What do you think about the information that's coming out of Wong's camp? Let me know in the comment section. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, y'all.